imagine if you had content on your briefcast, on your flash briefing, that was so engaging, so fun for the listener, that they were craving more and more from you, that they just couldn't wait to get that next episode. And in fact, they would message you and say, when's your next episode coming out? Can you send me another message? Can you upload more content for me so I can hear it? Well, I want to talk about creativity in our flash briefings and how we can create that type of engagement with our listeners. And that is basically through gamification. And I know some of you are familiar with this experiment that I ran. And I want to talk a little bit about that and how that ties into a marketing voice funnel. It's nice to see a lot of familiar faces. So I know a lot of you, and some of you will be familiar with this. But for those of you that don't, just very briefly, so I'm Terry Fisher. My day job is I'm a physician, kind of an unlikely position, I suppose, for somebody so passionate about voice technology. But I love technology. I love teaching. And so when Alexa first came to Canada, I created a website, Alexa in Canada, with my podcast, Alexa in Canada, quickly became part of Bradley's network, VoiceFirst.fm, to highlight what's going on with Alexa specifically for Canadians, because it is a little bit different. Using my healthcare background, I then created Voice First Health, which ties in the ideas of voice technology and healthcare, brought those together and created the podcast Voice First Health. When I first became aware of flash briefings, I saw it as a huge opportunity we've heard about from Jen and from Dave and from Armel. And so I created my flash briefing Voice in Canada, which is now approaching 600 daily episodes. As far as I know, it's the longest running flash briefing in Canada. And I'm very fortunate. It's been the top rated flash briefing since I launched it. And then I decided, well, we have to do something about the discovery. So I created the flash briefing network, briefcast.fm. And a lot of the speakers that you're hearing today are members of that network, where it's an opportunity for a place for people to come and find the really good quality flash briefings. And it helps a little bit with the discovery issue. And I've surveyed my audience, and this is one of the resources that they now use to find flash briefings. And then being that I love teaching so much, I decided that this is such a great opportunity that everybody should be taking advantage of this right now. As we heard from Jen, it's a huge opportunity. And so I created this course, Flash Briefing Formula, which you can access at flashbriefingformula.com. It's completely free. It's a premium course. It takes you through everything from how to come up with an idea for your flash briefing, how to launch it and market it. So I've been doing a lot in voice technology, a lot in flash briefings, and I want to share some of my experiments. This is going to be a little bit higher level. We've heard a little bit about how to set up a flash briefing, why you should be thinking about a flash briefing. But with a limited time, I want to get into gamification and voice marketing funnels and how you can use your flash briefings in this way. So here's the scenario. When I reached my 500th flash briefing, I wanted to do something different. I wanted to really engage my audience. I wanted to experiment. I wanted to thank them for being such great supporters of the flash briefing. I also wanted to, of course, acknowledge them, and I wanted to thank people that had come on my podcast as well. I wanted to get them involved in some way. Of course, I wanted to continue to grow my brand, and essentially, I wanted to create a new genre of briefcast, something that hadn't been done, and that, of course, is the gamified flash briefing. So how did I do that? Well, here's the thing. As I mentioned, I have the Voice in Canada flash briefing, and as we know, flash briefing is a great way to get your content out, but I wanted a way to get the listeners engaged with my flash briefing. So I sat down and I thought, well, how can I do this? And I realized if I can somehow get them engaged in a game on a daily basis, this would be a really interesting experiment. And so I came up with this idea where every day for 2 weeks, I would just throw a clue out there in my flash briefing. And it wouldn't be that obvious. Some days it would be more obvious, other days it wouldn't. And the listeners would have to engage with this if they chose to figure out what this clue is. And then when they could solve this clue, and if they didn't know what the answer was to this clue, they could go back to my blog or my podcast and find the answer. And then once they discovered that answer, they could go to this new skill called Crack the Code, where they could talk to the skill and they could try their hand at seeing if they had solved the puzzle. Now, if they solved the puzzle, the skill would then give them a small little piece of a final code. And if they did that every day for 2 weeks, they would get 14 pieces of this code. And then if they had the 14 pieces and they spoke to the skill and they could recite the actual final code, they would be given the key to unlock the website, where you go to the website to enter to win a prize or be in the draw for a prize. So when I started to think about this, I realized that this is actually a voice marketing funnel. And as the marketers will know, there's different levels of engagement. At the top level, very often when we interact with a brand, we often first find them through social media, whether it's a Twitter, Twitter post, a Facebook post, etc., a tweet. And so this is oftentimes the top level of engagement. Now, if somebody is intrigued enough by what you're doing, they may then want to go to your website. And so if they go to your website, they're a little bit more invested. They're looking at your content. They're searching something. After the website, if you happen to have a podcast, they may decide that, you know what, this is some interesting content. I want to subscribe to the podcast. Now, for me, my Alexa in Canada podcast is a weekly podcast. And so, yes, people would subscribe to that. Now, if they want to take it the next step, as far as I'm concerned, they then may want to subscribe to a daily flash briefing. And in this case, for these 2 weeks, it was a gamified flash briefing. And now if we go a step further, now that they've listened to the gamified flash briefing and they're intrigued and they want to play the game, they then go and they actually enable a specific skill. They elect the game skill. And now they're interacting with this skill. And if they're interacting and they're getting in the right clues, then perhaps this skill sends them an SMS message about how they're doing, or perhaps that they have cracked the code. And then that SMS message may send them back to my website where they can opt in and actually become a part of my mailing list. This all starts, really, the key thing here is the voice technology. Yes, you may discover this on social media or the website, but as this next diagram shows, they may actually enter the funnel at any one of these places: social media, website, podcast, or the flash briefing. Now, what I did very, very strategically is for the 2 weeks of this contest, I was cross-promoting the contest on each one of these levels, or each one of these boxes that you see on that first row, in my social media, on my website, in my podcast, and in my flash briefing. But the key is, while there was some interplay between those different elements, I was always making a very purposeful effort to drive the people towards the flash briefing, because the flash briefing is really where the game is being played. That's where they're getting the clues. And if they were engaging with the flash briefing, then they would be instructed to go and play the game on the skill where they would enter the codes. And as I mentioned, this would lead them down the path to get an SMS message and an opt-in. Now, I'm not a developer. And what I found is that I have no problem setting up that top level that you see. I've got my social media, I've created my website, I've created my flash briefing. I've created my podcast, and I've created my flash briefing, and they've all been functioning really well, and there's interplay amongst those. But in order for me to continue down this path, to really engage them and get them to opt in, I needed this skill. And for what I wanted to do, I don't have the developing skills, if you will, to create that type of Alexa skill. So this is where I reached out and I had a discussion with Bob from VoiceXP, and he helped me to create the Crack the Code skill using his platform. And I want to take a moment here now. I'm going to jump back because I want to bring Bob in here for 2 or 3 minutes to give a quick demo of how this played out and how we were able to do this. So let me stop sharing here for a sec. Can we bring Bob in and allow him to share his screen?
Yo, I'm here.
Awesome, Bob.
Let's get it going. All right. Hey, thanks, Terry. Hey, everybody. I'm Bob Stolzberg, founder and CEO of VoiceXP. We've been described as the Wix.com of voice. We allow you to build a voice experience that gets deployed to Alexa, Google, and Bixby goes live this month so that you can be on all those platforms. And I want to show you Terry's skill, Crack the Code, right now. This is great because, it's for non-technical people. This is as simple as Craigslist. I'm going to highlight some of the really important features as we go and keep it brief. Number one, you can publish this in your own account, or if you don't even want to mess with that Alexa developer account stuff, run it on our account. We'll do it as a managed service. Terry deployed his crack the code skill to all of these English speaking countries, amplifying his reach and making people, you know, in amazon.co.uk be able to find his skill. He increased his discoverability. Here's where he, you know, basically entered all the stuff that's needed for the different skill and action stores, keywords, and you can add beta testers. We take all the metrics and throw it into Google Analytics because it's a simple dashboard. But here's, if you use the skill, and actually I'm gonna start it and give a demo. I'm gonna turn my camera on so that you can see it in real time. Let me wave. Hi, everybody. Nice to meet you. Check this out. Alexa, start crack the code.
Welcome back to Crack the Code. If you need the rules or instructions, just say help. Otherwise, let's get going. Say a word or phrase that you think unlocks today's piece of the code, or if you know the complete code, let's hear it. What is your guess?
September.
Wow, you are incredible. Don't tell anyone, but you got it right. Congratulations. Write down this letter and keep it someplace safe, like under your pillow.
I'm gonna pause the speech there and just show you some other features, how you can add audio to this. So if you're a podcaster and you've got a library, just enter the intent, upload or link to the audio, type in some text to put it on a screen, and then you can add as many more audio clips as you want. Terry didn't have any audio or video, but what he did take advantage of was this really important feature, right? So we put in, and this isn't Terry's real number, but this is where Terry got a text message and an email anytime somebody said the magic phrase. So check this out. Alexa, open crack the code. Alexa, AIC Nation rocks.
OMG. You did it. You did it. Congratulations. You successfully cracked the code.
You cracked the code. So what happened then was we sent an SMS message, a text to the user. Now, Terry mentioned earlier, right, you got to have the instructions on where to go to opt in, and you get extra points. And then we send an SMS message to Terry and an email with the user's phone number, letting him know, hey, this person cracked the code. They won. Call them up or email them, and that confirms that they actually cracked the code. And, you know, at the end of that message, once you give a phone number, Alexa says, okay, great, got it. I just sent you a text message. And all of this is multimodal. So you saw a background image, but Terry came in and he added a bunch more phrases or intents so that you could text people a link to your site, to your social media, to your landing page, whatever. That's one of the killer apps, people, is sending people a text to drive them to your other properties. And one of the other new features we rolled out is a call me feature. So if Terry would have put a magic phrase in there, the customer could have said it, right? Maybe that phrase is AIC Nation rocks. The customer would have given their phone number and it would have called them and Terry, and Alexa's now an operator and would bridge those calls together. So this was the tooling behind Terry's amazing success so that a non-technical person could have a brilliant idea and execute on it. And what Terry did is he hit the update button, which saves it to the CMS, and then you can come back in and edit this at any time. And we take care of all the deployment for you. Thanks, guys.
Amazing.
Terry,
Thanks, Bob. That's awesome. Okay, let me go back to my screen here now. So let me go back to my keynote.
Yeah, guys, we'd love to hear some questions. Throw them out there in the chat.
Yeah, I can't see the questions, but I'm happy to, go through them at the end and that sort of thing. Okay. So I want to talk a little bit about the results of this because, as I was doing this, I was wondering, as you saw in my marketing funnel, like there are a lot of steps to this. And so, as I said, it was an experiment. I'm like, are people going to engage with this or is it too complicated? And I'm thrilled to say that, oh yeah, people engaged with it. So I had 574 people enter the contest. Okay. Interestingly, 20 people cracked the code. And then I gave away 2 prizes. There was a grand prize and there was a participation prize as well. Okay, let's talk about a little bit of the numbers. So as far as flash briefing plays, so the best way that I could look at the differences in the analytics was to compare the 2 weeks prior to CTC, meaning crack the code, the contest, and then the numbers that I had during the 2 weeks of crack the code. And the number of times that my flash briefing was played on Alexa, so on an Echo device, increased by 20%. Okay, pretty good, not bad. Here's some other interesting parts though, is that when we look at how many times my flash briefing was activated, how many times people were interested in enabling the skill, this grew enough interest that my flash briefing activations grew 180% over that 2-week period. Okay, so this kind of thing gets people interested. Now, my web traffic, as I mentioned, there's a lot of integration with my web. All of the different assets that I have, my podcast, my blog, my flash briefing, and it were very tightly integrated. And in fact, people had to go to the website if they didn't know the answer and search for it if they wanted to do so. So my web traffic actually drew, more than doubled. It grew by 110% over those 2 weeks. And what I also did was I embedded my flash briefings into a website at voiceincanada.ca so that if people missed a code a particular day, because remember, the flash briefing is there that day and then it's gone the next day. So if they came 3 days later, 3 days into the contest, but they still wanted to play, they could go back to my website and listen to the older flash briefings. And what I found is that the number of flash briefings that were played on my website increased by 200%. So it essentially tripled. So this was generating a lot of interest and enough interest that people were coming back to my website to listen to the old flash briefings. And just to give you some examples of what happened with my engagement on social media. So my Twitter followers during that 2-week period grew by 491%. The links, the number of times that a link was clicked on in my Twitter, in my tweets, 427% increase during that 2-week period. Retweets, well, people were interested in sharing this out with their following. And so these tweets were retweeted an increase of 65% over what was my baseline for retweets for my tweets the 2 weeks prior. Likes, well, there was a lot of engagement, so it's not surprising. The likes also grew 139%. And here's the interesting one that I find probably most interesting. Just how much did my social media tweets get out there? The impressions. How many people actually saw it as a result of people sharing and retweeting and talking about it and sharing from the website? My Twitter impressions for those 2 weeks grew. Oh, and I pushed the wrong button after that big climb. Grew 2,100%. My Twitter impressions went up 20 times over that 2-week period of the contest. These results blew my mind away, to be perfectly honest. I didn't know what kind of results this experiment would get, but needless to say, people loved it. And beyond the analytics, I want to just share with you some comments that I received. So these are some of the community responses that I received about the Crack the Code contest. I'll just highlight a couple of them. Well, one of them says, this is like Pokemon Go for voice first. I had somebody on the left side there, the third one down the left, saying they were playing with my skill for 2 hours trying to crack the code. I don't know of somebody else that engaging with an Alexa skill where they played with it for 2 hours. Some other things, other ones I just wanted to highlight. The very last one there, the last sentence. Thanks for this. It's the most fun I've had online in ages. Thanks, Terry. So people were enjoying this. This was a tremendous response, and I'm so thankful, so appreciative for everybody that took the time to tune into this and play along, because it was a lot of fun. So that's that part. What I want to talk about just briefly now is a couple of free resources that I mentioned to you. Flash Briefing Formula, it's my completely free course. If you're interested, please check it out. I love to have people go through and create their own flash briefings. And if you are creating your own flash briefing and it's really high quality and you're interested in becoming part of the Briefcast.fm network, then I'd love for you to get in touch with me and we can talk more about what's involved with that, because the network is growing. And now in a very sort of Apple-esque type finale here, I want to talk about one more thing. And this part's really exciting for me. As I mentioned, I've been doing a lot of work with Alexa in Canada and Voice in Canada. But there's another thing that I've been working on, and that's Voice First Health. And that is using my healthcare background and my interest in technology. I've got this Voice First Health podcast. And I've been doing that now for a year and a half. The Briefcast.fm network is there, and that's been there for probably about a year. And I've learned a lot now over doing briefcasts, doing podcasts, learning about voice technology, really over the last 2 years. And so I've been thinking about ways. Now, some people have been asking me, like, so you've got these diverse interests here. You're a physician, but you're doing into voice technology. Kind of where do they come together? And I want to tell you where they come together. So I think what we need with this age where information is all out there is we need practical health tips, stuff that's from a reputable source. We need things that are evidence-based. So it's based in research, and it's, so if we're going to give a tip, it's got to be reputable. It's got to be proven. It's got to be something that we can count on. Ideally, these would be short segments for a person. Hopefully they'd be fun and enjoyable, and perhaps maybe even be rewarding for somebody that takes very good concrete health advice to live a more healthy and fulfilling life. And so, again, taking my experience over the last couple of years, it is really exciting today to announce that I'm launching another flash briefing called Voice First Health Tips. And this is another daily show where it's going to be a short, small, little briefcast where a person can listen in and get a practical, reputable, evidence-based health tip to help them live a more healthy and fulfilling life. But there's more. In addition to health tips, I also want to announce that this is just one in a catalog of health tips from Voice First Health. We're also launching diabetes tips for somebody that has diabetes that needs a daily reminder or a daily tip on how they can improve their management of diabetes. Launching blood pressure tips for somebody with high blood pressure that needs some practical advice. We're launching acne tips, and we're also launching skincare tips. And this is just the beginning of a complete catalog that is being built out for Voice First Health flash briefings. Some of these are me. Obviously, I can't do all of these alone. And so I'm very fortunate to have now a team of medical students at the University of British Columbia that are helping me to develop out these health-related flash briefings. And it's really, really exciting. This is going to become the go-to place for flash briefings and health-related tips. And I want to also mention that in launching this many flash briefings, I've been looking for the perfect platform to use. And we heard from Armel about treble.fm. And I first interviewed Armel on my podcast about a year and a half or 2 years ago now. And we have been talking about his platform for a long time. And I can tell you, I absolutely love his platform. He's incredible. He's an incredible entrepreneur. And we've been chatting back and forth and having some discussions about what would be great features. And I'm really, really proud to say that this catalog, the Voice First Health, is powered by Treble. And it's really, really fantastic. So Treble is my go-to flash briefing host now for these things. On top of that, I want to say that I said it would be great if we could reward people for taking healthy behaviors. And one of the ways that we can do that is actually actually give people a concrete reward, something that they can do, something that they can get if they take active, healthy behaviors. And that may mean listening to one of these tips. For those of you that were at the Voice of Healthcare Summit, you heard from someone by the name of Michael Antran. He has a platform called Carrot Wellness, and I encourage you to check it out at carrotwellness.com. It is an app that literally rewards people for getting their steps each day. and he is embracing voice technology as well. And what really, really excites me is that now when somebody enables one of these flash briefings from Voice First Health, they actually get rewarded through Carrot's platform, and they can use those points to purchase things on the platform. And so while this is powered by Treble, these flash briefings are also rewarded by Carrot. And this is a screenshot of the Carrot platform where you can see that if you choose to enable one of these flash briefings, you actually earn reward points that then you can use to play games, to buy products on the platform. And so if somebody takes the effort to listen to a flash briefing that's going to improve their health, they will not only learn stuff, but they will actually be rewarded as well. And so, Voice First Health, this catalog starts today, powered by Treble, rewarded by Carrot, and they are all launched live. They're today. They're available at voicefirsthealth.com or at briefcast.fm. And I am continually going to be growing out this catalog. If you know somebody that's interested in becoming a part of somebody that wants to produce content for this catalog, I am open to suggestions because clearly I can't do this all by myself, but I want this to be really quality, evidence-based, health-related flash briefings, and I'm very, very excited about this. So that is my presentation. I want to thank you very much for your attention. Thanks very much.
We gotta give that a lot of applause.
Amazing.